Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. And my name is Sausan Asfari. I'm the co-founder of the Galilee Foundation, which, as you may know, is a British registered charity. We were founded to support the Palestinian community in both Israel and Palestine, and we support educational and cultural initiatives. Our core program is the scholarship program, where we give underprivileged Palestinian students scholarships to attend universities both in Israel and Palestine. Our work is vital, and your support is also vital to us. So I hope once the webinar is finished, you have time to check out our website, and feel free to press the donate button. And if you have any questions, please do email us on our website, www.galileefoundation.org.uk. I'd like to introduce to you our trustee and a board member, Khalid Jahshan, who is also the director of the Arab Center in Washington. Khalid will be moderating the session today, and he will be introducing our guests for this webinar. Thank you, Khalid. I pass it on to you.
Thank you very much, Sausan, and welcome to everyone to this special webinar, Palestinian Students at Israeli Universities, Access and Challenges. We're grateful to the Galilee Foundation for arranging this webinar. We have a great panel for you. I will be introducing in a couple of minutes, but let me start right away by reading this quote about, just as an introductory quote regarding the system of education in Israel. This is an old quote in a way. It goes back to 2006. By the Minister of Education in Israel at the time, Limor Livnat, and in which she said, Palestinian Arab citizens of Israel make up nearly 1/4 of Israel's school children. Yet, Palestinian Arab children receive an education that is inferior in nearly every respect when compared to Jewish children. Educated in schools run by the Israeli government, but separated from Jewish children, Palestinian Arab citizen schools are more crowded, with fewer teachers per child, and in worse physical condition. Some schools lack libraries, counselors, and recreation facilities. Palestinian Arab school children get fewer enrichment and remedial programs and special education services than Jewish children receive. Many communities have no kindergartens for 3- and 4-year-olds. Palestinian Arabs experience discrimination at every level of the education system. As a result, there are 3 times as likely to drop out than Jewish children and rarely make it to university. It's a controversial statement, particularly for a Minister of Education in Israel to make, admitting the deficiency, if you will, in the Israeli educational system, starting from kindergarten all the way to university. Is there such discrimination in Israel? Is there such inequality in the educational system in Israel? To help us decipher this complicated and somewhat controversial and often denied statement, we have with us 3 experts who are the product of the Israeli higher education system in a way, and they graduated from different universities in Israel, and more importantly, they teach at different educational institutions of higher learning in Israel. We'll start first with Muhannad Mustafa, who is a senior lecturer at the Beit Burl College and lectures in the MA Middle East Politics program at the School of Political Science, University of Haifa. He also served as, serves as director of Mad Al Karmel, the Arab Center for Applied Social Research, and an NGO based in Haifa and established in 2000, focusing on the socio-economic and political problems of the Arab community in Israel. Muhannad specializes in Arab politics in Israel, political Islam, Arab regimes, democratization, and politics in Palestine and Israel, and he has published various books and many articles regarding these topics. His most recent book is co-authored with As'ad Ghanim, Professor As'ad Ghanim, is entitled Israel in the Post-Oslo Era, Prospects for Conflict and Reconciliation with the Palestinians. After Muhannad, we have Professor Sarab Abu Rabia Kuwaider. Dr. Kuwaider is an associate professor at the School of Education at Ben Gurion University in the Negev. In her studies, she focuses on the mechanisms of control, radicalization, and marginalization in the field of knowledge production and work among Palestinian women. Her recent studies have focused on the epistemology of surveillance among Palestinian researchers in Israeli universities. She was named a Sociologist of the Month in the prestigious journal Current Sociology for her article, The Biopolitics of Declassing Palestinian Professional Women in a Settler Colonial Context. She's a feminist activist, in addition, of course, to her leading academic career. Following Professor Abu Rabia Kuwaider, Ayman Ghbari will conclude the statements by the panelists. Professor Ayman Ghbari is a researcher. He's also, for your information, a poet and a playwright and social activist who serves as an associate professor in the Department of Leadership and Policy in Education at the University of Haifa. In 2016, he served as a visiting scholar at the Center for Research and Evaluation in Muslim Education at the University College London Institute of Education and at the Institute for Islamic Studies at the University of Vienna. Ayman holds 2 master's degrees, one in international development and social change from Clark University, and the other in criminology from the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. He also holds a dual doctorate degree in educational theory and policy and in international and comparative education from Pennsylvania State University. Welcome to all 3 of you. We appreciate very much your taking time with your busy schedules to be with us to discuss this very, very important topic, not only to Galilee Foundation, but also to our audience, people who are interested in peace and injustice in the region and view education as central to that objective. Each one of you will have 8 minutes to make your basic statement, express your point of view on the subject matter, and then we will spend the balance of our time in the art of conversation, giving a chance to our audience to ask questions. Please enter your questions in the Q&A mechanism at the bottom of your page, and I will be more than glad to read your questions. Feel free to mention your name and affiliation, and who do you direct your question to, and we will be delighted to respond to your questions. Please make your questions short, sweet, and to the point, so we could accommodate as many as possible. Muhannad will begin by giving us a background on the higher education system in Israel at this time. Muhannad, please go ahead. You have 8 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Khalil. The Palestinian students face considerable hardships during their university studies. Some of these hardships derive from language barriers. In addition, studies show that the Arab students face different forms of exclusion by the universities. These create a sense of alienation and estrangement. Despite the discriminations, the number of Palestinian students increased and grew in the last decade. The number of the Arab students improved by 122% within a decade from 2011 to 2021. The BA degree, the number of students grew by 106%. Master's degree, the number of students grew by 207%. And last, the PhD Palestinian student in the university, in the Israeli university, the number of students grew by 133%. The number of the Arab students at higher education institutions continue to grow in 2021, which closed the 50,000 students threshold for the first time in 2019 and reached 50,000 students and in 2021. This represents an increase of 121 between 209 and 221. In 210, the number of the Arab PA degree students was only 22,000, and they continued and they constitute 10% of all the BA's degree students in Israel. But the number of the Arab master's degree student grew by 228% between 2021. If in 2010 and 2011 there were only 3,000 Arab master's degree students in Israel, who constituted only 6% of all master's degree students in Israel. By 2021, their numbers grew to 10,000 students, and their percentage out of the total number of master's degree students grew to 16%. The important increase in the number of the Arab master's degree students has taken place particularly this year, I mean 2021. There were 1,500 more students in 2021 relative to 2020, with the average growth between each year over the 10 preceding years amounting to 600 students. Palestinian students in Israeli universities face discriminations and barriers to their education on myriad levels. The climate of the Israeli university, the studies, the language, the staff, the most of the professors, and the curricula promotes Zionist hegemony and exclusivity. Arabs are typically a minority in the classroom, and the class are learned in a language that is not their mother language, with a few opportunities available for students to express themselves or explore academic literature in Arabic language. Although the number of the Arab students attending an institution of higher education in Israel has increased, the Arab language has little presence in the Israeli academic world. At the same time, many among the Jewish majority who typically served in the army before attending university regard Palestinians in general as a security threat to be feared and mistrusted. Meanwhile, fields of study that could potentially legitimize a Palestinian's claim to the country are often omitted from the curriculum of many relevant courses. As a result of systemic discrimination throughout the entire trajectory of Palestinian students' educational experience, and even more a result of the hegemony exercised by the state over all Israeli education, the Palestinian society in Israel lacks the infrastructure for studies for university or independent legitimation to build a university. For the year 2020, only 8% of PhD students in Israel universities were Arab. Specifically, about 900 of the total of 11,000 students. Furthermore, there is no space available for this small number of Palestinians PhD students to congregate together as an academic community, leaving them vulnerable and subject to marginalization. Moreover, state grants and scholarship for postgraduate degree at Israeli institutions are often unfavorable to Palestinian students. In many cases, completion of army service is taken into consideration, along with the students' financial situation and academic performance. Palestinian citizens don't enlist in the army and are therefore excluded from some forms of financial support that are available for Israeli Jewish students. Many other scholarships available in Israel are from Zionist organizations who offer support to Jewish students only, or accept Zionist terms. The political challenge that appears in also the challenge that the Arab students face in the Israeli universities are or there are many challenges, but I think that is now the most challenge that the Arab students face is the political challenge that appears in the reducing the space for political action and activities for the Palestinian students movement in the Israeli universities, and also in the government's attention to legislate the Palestinian flag law, which prevents Arab students from raising the Palestinian flag in their various activities.
Thank you, Muhannad. Please conclude. You have 1 minute. Go ahead.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Professor Sarab, go ahead. You have the next 8 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Good evening, good morning. I will not repeat what Muhannad said. I will only elaborate. I will elaborate on the first part of my lecture regarding the obstacles that facing Arab students. And at the second part that I will hope I will have time, I will talk about how in the last 2 years, there has been a nomination of vice presidents for diversity and inclusion in the institution of higher education. 2 of them are Palestinian Arabs, two women, and I am one of them. So I will address how, through my role, I'm trying to increase the status and open the pipe and increase the pipelines of not only Arab students, but also Arab faculty. So I will start first by saying that although the Council for Higher Education has decided to increase the number of Arab students in the educational system, it has not done enough in order to include them, to get them more integrated, equally integrated in the Israeli higher education institutions. They're not, or they suffer from full, lack of full integration. And they suffer from several penalties that I will address them. And although the numbers, the very great numbers that Dr. Muhannad has mentioned, these increase didn't translate it into an increase in the number of Arab faculty, which constitute now only 3.1% in all 7 universities, Arab, Druze, and Cherkessi, all in the same definition. So first of all, the educational system in Israel is separated, which means that Arab can come from an inferior educational system and equal to the Jewish educational system. And they meet at the first time, I can say, on a daily basis inside the Israeli universities, which most of them, all of them, are located in the main Jewish cities. So this is the first encounter for the Arab students also to the Israeli culture, especially for women students, which constitute now almost 70% of the students in all Israeli universities. So this is their first encounter. So although their number increasing in the educational system, they suffer from a few excluded, or I call them penalties, The first penalty that Muhannad mentioned is the linguistic penalty. Penalty is a kind of discrimination. What is a linguistic penalty? It means that these students come from schools that Hebrew is taught as a second language. It is not sufficient enough to use within the Israeli institution, which is the main language that is taught in the universities, and also English is their third language. Another obstacle is the psychometric entrance exam, which is biased against the Arabs in between 100 to 120 points against the Arab students. That's why we see also in the numbers or what they study in the numbers of the professional discipline, most of the Arabs, especially Bedouins, which comes from the south of Israel, from the most marginalized educational system, still most of them concentrate in humanities and social sciences. So this is regarding Hebrew. They suffer also from ethnic penalty, which means ethnic or racial penalty because of their identity, because they suffer from hidden racism, especially from the security, especially in times of political tension. And we also suffer as faculty members from, let's say, radical cells inside the university and outside the university that hunt professors for their critical writing, for knowledge production, which criticize the state policies. So this is another hidden form of policing knowledge production, which I called in my paper Epistemology of Surveillance. There is also a cultural penalty. Till a few years ago, when a student comes to the Israeli university, there is no any symbol, any sign of the Arabic, not only language, but also the Arabic culture. We only recently, with the budgets that comes from the Council for Higher Education, that there are some coordinators, people from the Arab community that are coordinators for the Arab students inside the student union that actually celebrate some cultural events for the Arab students. But again, it is separated, it is minor, it is not the main culture inside the university. And another thing is the digital penalty. We saw during the COVID crisis how our Arab students suffered from this penalty. This penalty is not new. I mean, the COVID just explored, the racial structural gaps that existed before, and academic institutions didn't take into consideration the special needs, the special structural racial history needs of the Arab students, especially the Bedouins that lack infrastructure, lack internet in their homes. We saw that while 70% of the Jewish families have internet connection, only 43% of the Arab families are connected to internet. And also during this time, the Bedouin in the south of Israel suffered from home demolitions. Home demolitions continued during the COVID, we witnessed a high dropout of students from the Bedouin educational system. For the student, lack of infrastructure, lack of transportation, lack of internet connections. We saw also some dropout in the numbers of the students. So the second part that I will refer to is what do we do in our new role as VPs? And we try, it's a challenge because again, we're working in a hegemonic hegemonic institutional sphere that they're also challenged by us. So the first thing that we do, our mission is to open the pipeline, to increase the pipeline, to get more Arab faculty into universities. So just a few days ago, I managed to pass, it's like a law that when we have, nominated faculty nominated to the university, if we have a woman or a man, So we will have, and they're equally excellent. We will choose a woman or the less represented minority in the department. So I can say that this is at least the top-down policy that I managed to pass. The bottom-up is we have an annual program for Arab female PhD, which we call it Pioneer to the Academia, Riyadiyat للأكاديمية, that aims to promote excellence and create role models among those community. It's a scientific leadership that we actually give them a toolbox and socialization into the academia. Most of them come from first-generation families, so they need this cultural capital, this academic capital, in order, to know what is an academic career. So this is a bottom-up process.
Dr. Sarab, you have one more minute to conclude.
Okay,
Please
and so I will go to the. If you give me only another minute on the expense of Muhannad,
Sure.
He didn't use his minute. Thank you. So another two main things that I did is creating or establishing a committee for eliminating racism. It took me a year to get it approved, and I am the head of the committee. The aim of the committee is to take responsible or take care in all issues that concerns racism among faculty and among students, and also to develop workshops and to raise the awareness regarding racism, microaggression, and other, blindness spots that we're not aware to when faculty and students deal with the other students. And another important thing that we have during the May events 2021, May events 2022, all the events of the Nakba and the flag that Arab students suffered, from the security unit. So what we managed to do is to give a professional workshop for the security unit in how to actually, balance between the national identity of the security people and between their actual professional role, which is to defend to protect the Arab student, even if his identity, even if his flag, even if his language is not accepted by the security. And this balance is so now this workshop is a permanent workshop in the security department, that all the department go through this workshop 3 times a year. Okay, I will stop. And one last thing, we're not only trying to eliminate discrimination and to fight, but also trying to create what is called a shared life. A shared life, we're not going now to a shared life program. Our aim is not to solve the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, but our aim is to get Jewish and Arab students in the same institutional academic sphere to know each other, not to be afraid of each other. It's a long process, but it's something that we must do at least to create an inclusive environment and institutional climate that they will understand each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sarab. Professor Ayman, the microphone is yours for the next 8 minutes. Please proceed.
Thank you, Dr. Khalil, and thank you, Sarab and Muhannad, for your comprehensive presentations. I mean, and it's not easy to be a professor at a Jewish university, at an Israeli university, and to bring these discourses of racism and discrimination. This needs a lot of courage and integrity to bring this discourse into the Israeli universities. I just want to limit my remarks to one issue, which I think Sarab referred to as the policing of the knowledge production at the Israeli universities. The idea that, to what extent Arab students, Arab faculty, Palestinian students are enabled, are legitimized to discuss certain issues. which relates directly to their identity, to their heritage, to their cause. And I want to start by reminding us that the first obstacle to engage more seriously, more significantly with these issues relate to the small number, the small percentage, actually very small number of Arab faculty in the Israeli university. Now we have 2 vice presidents, but yet we still like 3 to 4% of the faculty. This means that that Arab students find it very difficult to find Arab supervisors to supervise their work, their PhDs and their dissertations and MA theses. They find it very difficult to find an Arab supervisors. Now, that said, I mean, many of the Arab students who still want to go further and for MA and for PhDs, and at the PhD, Mohannad reminded us that it's only 8%. I mean, 8% of the PhD students are Arabs. So these few, when they want to, again, go for to study their heritage, the issues that relate to their communities, to their localities, to their history, they must do it in Hebrew, and not even they prefer to do it. They don't prefer. They are pushed to do it in Hebrew, and they don't have any possibility to write in Arabic. It's also they don't have. They would even prefer to do quantitative methods rather than qualitative methods. In a study that I have conducted with my student, we have tested 500, almost 500 MA and PhD theses at Haifa University in 5 years. There were like almost 500 PhDs and MA theses. Now you would ask what percentage, of these studies went to study, for example, like the history of Arab education. And these 500 theses are all in the Faculty of Education. Now, what is the percentage of these theses that studied, the history of the Arab education? None, 0. You would ask, anything that relates to Arab politics, the connection between education and Arab politics, almost none. The bulk majority of these theses, they were technical, basically in social education and and related fields, and the bulk of these, if you go like to and ask, to what percentage is like that discussed policy, education policy, education leadership. Really very few, insignificant number out of these 500. I don't want to overwhelm you with numbers, but the idea that this is insignificant numbers. Now, and most of these Arab students, they would go for the quantitative, because the qualitative is, it's language based. They need to go through language, and they need Arab, supervisors to understand the transcriptions. They need, if they have a Jewish supervisor, they need to translate it. It's a double work. So I think it's a huge issue. What is the knowledge that has been produced within the Israeli universities? And when it comes to education, my field, I'm sorry to report, that we are lagging behind in terms of that Arab students actually are not engaging with issues. Really, very few examples. Every year we have very few examples. That people would go and study issues of identity, of the Palestinian identity, heritage, Islamic culture, Islamic heritage.
Professor Ayman, you have 1 minute to conclude.
Yeah,
please
and
go ahead.
even racism as a phenomenon within the Israeli education is actually not studied. Just to conclude, I think also the idea that many of our colleagues, are Jewish Israelis. They could be born to the left. It doesn't matter, but they don't have an intimate knowledge with the Arab, with the Palestinian minority, with the Palestinian history, with the Palestinian issues. It comes that in many times they would guide our students, the Palestinian students, into notions of Orientalism, notions of really very generalistic, ways of, talking about the Arab population or the Palestinian population in Israel. I just wanted to shed some light, to shed the light on this issue of this, epistemology, like the policing of the production of knowledge in the Israeli society, especially when it's comes through these hidden routes, through the supervision and what is legitimate and what's illegitimate to study in the universities. Thank you.
Thank you to all three of you for these great presentations. You gave us a lot of food for thought to think about. And let me go ahead and move directly to questions from the audience. The first question we have is from Andy Simons. What percentage of Palestinian university students in Israel go for degrees in humanities? And based on your experience, how does that compare, let's say, to Palestinian students in the West Bank? Muhannad, would you like to tackle this one first, since
thank
you mentioned the statistics?
The majority of the Palestinian students studies the humanities and the social science. I think that is the most than 55% of the students study in the humanities and social science. I think this is because this is because the market, the economy of the Israeli is very limited. So they go to these faculties, but compared to the Palestinian university in the West Bank, for example, I think that the student go this faculties is less than 50%. I think that the behavior of I think that we can explain this behavior. So this is behavior of minorities, the limits of the market, of the Israeli market. There is no opportunities to work in the Israeli economy, just in the humanities and social science, like to work as teachers or in the local municipalities in the Arab towns. So the majority of the Arab students go to the humanities and the social science in the Israeli universities.
Thank you. How about the comparison with the West Bank? Do you have any idea what the equivalent?
No, but I think that if we compare this percentage to the West Bank, I think in the Palestinian universities in the West Bank, I think that is less than 50% of the students go to these faculties, less than 50%. That means the majority of the Arab students go in the Israeli universities go to these faculties.
Professor Sarab, it was mentioned earlier that only 8% of Arab students continue for their PhD studies, and you mentioned specifically the lack in terms of women students pursuing their higher degree. Could you help us understand why? Is it a diktat? Is it lack of opportunity? Is it lack of preparation? Why are these numbers so low at this level? I mean, progress has been made at the lower level of higher education, but not at the PhD level. Why?
Because PhD does not guarantee, like what Muhannad said, it does not guarantee work inside the academia, inside the Israeli academia. Also, the positions are very, very minor. We don't have many free positions, so the competition is big. This is on the one hand. On the other hand, the economic situation of the Arab families in general is lower, is much more lower. They suffer more from poverty than the Jewish PhDs. So they need the, the guarantee, the economic guarantee, in order, sorry for my camera, in order to be able to continue for higher degrees. We see them in masters, especially in the STEM professions. Most of them, we see very high numbers in the undergraduate studies, but then it cannot be translated into a work, an employment or a participation in the labor market, in the Israeli labor market. So most of them continues or go back to study as teachers in their villages, and also PhDs. You need, PhD is a long journey, is a very long journey, and it needs a lot of sacrifice on the expense of your home, on the expense of your work. You need to put an effort, in making a research, in going, staying away from home, but also you need a very high scholarship, and the scholarship available for the Arabs. There are scholarship available, but they're not enough. They're not enough to subsidize this long journey.
So also the lack of supervisors in the university, and I think it's also a reason for the low percentage of the Arab in the PhD level. There is no supervisor enough supervisor that can guide this student to PhD.
I think if we could find scholarship, it will bring the supervisors, because sometimes supervisors need this a scholarship, so they will be willing to supervise. But also I agree, there's not enough supervisors, but we can motivate them, I think, by scholarship, especially in the STEM. And this is part of the process that I'm working on at my university, how to increase the pipelines through trying to find scholarship for masters, and then to continue to their PhD, hopefully, that they will also continue to postdoc abroad. And this is another obstacle for the female and also for men. The postdoc, doing postdoc abroad in Israel, in order to get a position, academic position, you need to go abroad, outside of the country, to do a research and to prove that you're eligible, that you are eligible as a scholar. And most of, there is some, they're afraid. It's a threatening word. You don't know. This is the point that is needed to cross in order to receive. And again, scholarship are available, but are not enough for the Arabs.
Yeah, speaking on behalf of institutions outside that do show willingness to help, frankly, most of the applications that are received, based on my personal knowledge of being on the board of several organizations that grant scholarships, tend to be undergrad. Frankly, we haven't been sensitized to the need in this respect on higher levels like masters and PhDs. And I hope all three of you would highlight that, both with local and international organizations that you might be familiar with, because the need is not that clear on the outside for the higher degrees. So I'm sure there will be receptivity to that if these facts that you are explaining now, and if more people are watching this and see the need to step in and step up, so to speak. Okay, let me go to Professor Ayman. You mentioned something about policing knowledge on campus and the difficulty related to that, particularly, I guess, with research. There is a question again from Andy saying, do Palestinian Israelis have the same access to, let's say, government-controlled historical archives as do Jewish researchers, or is there limitations on the ability of Arab researchers not to just choose their own topic, if you will, but to have access to other archives that are not open?
I think in principle, you know, and Muhammad, you can correct me because you have done a lot of work with the archives. They have equal access to it, but you know the problem that this is in theory, but in practice, many of the archival materials are restricted. They have restricted access to it, and it's a very sensitive matter in Israel, specifically when it comes to the issue of 48 and the Nakba and aftermaths. I just want to add another comment, please, Dr. Khalil, to the idea of scholarships. I think the idea is not just to increase the number of PhDs. We might have tens of PhDs, technical PhDs, who do not contribute anything. I'm sorry to say this. These are technical, very technical when they are guided, like especially through the specific lens of being an Israeli, of being, complying to the Zionist narrative, to the Zionist, ideology, trying to avoid controversial issues, and trying to comply to your supervisor, who doesn't want to do politics in the research. He doesn't want to have a moral stance. Even it's not a bias. It's a moral stance. We end up with many PhDs, who are, with no taste, with no color, with no smell, with, like very technical. This is why it's very important that the civil society comes to help the PhD students, to bring them to, at least to give them a space where they can come deliberate on their issues, feel free to talk in Arabic, for example, to present their knowledge to their communities, to the schools, to the educators. I think it's very important to empower these PhD students, not only through the Israeli institutions and through scholarships that goes through the Israeli universities, but rather through scholarships that goes through the civil society organizations.
Just I want to add about the archives. What Dr. Ayman mentioned is correct. In theory, there is equal access to the archives in Israel, but in practice, it's very difficult for the Palestinian historian to get the documents. In general, Israel in the last decade adopted a policy to close all the archive, especially related to 1948. We cannot find now any documents that related to the Nakba, what happened in the Palestinian society in 48. Israel has been adopting policy to close the archive. I just want to mention that just 5% of the documents in the Israeli archive related what happened in 1948, it's open. The majority of the documents, it's closed. We cannot use this, not just for the Palestinian researchers, also for the Jewish researchers. This is now the policy of Israel, not to debate about the Palestinian history, about what happened in 1948. And it's very hard, especially for Palestinian researcher to write now a historical research about what happened in 1948.
Interesting.
I would like,
yeah,
if I
go
may,
ahead.
just to add to the epistemology of surveillance here, regarding to what Dr. Ayman said. Also, I found that Arab faculty, young Arab faculty before tenure, are also afraid to discuss political issues such as the Nakba, such as using terms such as settler colonialism. And I think also we must empower, ourselves, the faculty, okay, the researchers, not to be afraid to use such terms, especially if they are, academic terms. These are academic terms. Unfortunately, there is a policing and hunting, and blacklist of Arab and also Jewish Jewish scholars who use these epistemologies. They are hunted also. But again, so far, I can say that we can defend ourselves by sticking to the academic freedom. That at least it is, in theory, at least it still exists now in these days.
Sarab, is this an issue of I don't know how it's done compared to the US? Is it an issue of security clearance, or is it internal regulations within the university that prevent?
No, it is a hidden policing, at least in terms of, publishing. But these radical right wings, of in Tirzu, which is a radical wing that sits in the universities as a legitimate political cells inside universities, in campuses and outside campuses, that hunt not in a hidden, in a very, very visible way. In a visible way, they have their own website and blacklists of scholars and researchers, both Arab and Jewish, that dare to criticize the state policy, and this is dangerous. So far, I think I would like to hope, I would like to think positively that we still have our academic freedom. I hope that I'm afraid that and worry that with the new government, our situation would be much worse, much worse, because it will be now by the law. I hope it will not.
Sausan, do you have a question or a comment, please?
Yes, I just have two questions. I wanted to ask Dr. Ayman, when you mentioned the civil society organizations, did you mean the Israeli ones or Palestinian ones or both? And also, do you get help from your Jewish colleagues? I know, Sarab and Muhannad, you sort of answered that even the Jewish colleagues who are pro-Palestinian don't have access. But have you had occasions where they were able to access certain archives for you and help you in your research? And just the last question, do you feel already the hostility increasing now more than in the previous government, or you're just waiting for these new laws to be passed?
Yeah, I mean, we have, of course, we work with our Jewish, mates, our Jewish, the faculty members, who are, part of our research programs, research projects. We cooperate in research projects, and some of them, are highly sensitive to the Palestinian issues, to the issues of the Palestinian identity. But sometimes still you need an intimate knowledge of the Palestinian history, Palestinian community inside Israel, to be able to supervise a doctoral, for example, in a work that goes into the details of the specific lives of this community, and not to fall in generalization. For example, Palestinians in Israel are a collectivist society. It's something that every Israeli scholar would encourage his students to label the Palestinians as being traditionalist, collectivist. So this is one issue. I think what I refer mostly to the Palestinian civil society organizations, where they would be a more appropriate venue for the PhD students, MA students to convene, to talk in Arabic, to feel that they are literally hugged. They need, it's a long journey, to do a research, and they need to really and emotionally to be supported. What is lacking, I think I want to support what Sarab has just said, that the faculty itself, now we are professors, we are tenured, we can really use all these terms, but the young generation, when they get into the Israeli universities, this publishing or perishing, it's not publishing, it's a huge pressure on them. It's a huge pressure. Just one example, let me just give one example. I have just published a couple of years ago a piece it's called Apartheid Education in South Africa, ongoing lessons for the Israeli case. Now, it took me 6 rounds of revisions, of Israeli readers, because it comes to the idea you should eliminate the word apartheid from the title. I said, I'm not saying Israel is an apartheid. I'm saying that this is a lesson for it wasn't enough for them, but still, it came out with the original title because it was robust and it was professional, and eventually it was published. The idea that as a faculty, MA students, PhD students, they need a lot of support and empowerment. This is, I think, my main message tonight to you, Susan.
Oh, thank you. I know. We know from our undergraduate students, we had a high rate of dropout until we actually got them mentors at the university, where we were able to use our 2nd and 3rd year university students to support them emotionally and to sort of be their mentors and guiding light as they made it through the university degrees. But I think what you're saying, your journey is even harder. It takes longer, and with the PhD programs and research papers. So, we will see how we can help with that, hopefully.
Thank you. Let me conclude with a question addressed to all 3 of you. Essentially, I was looking at an article written by 2 Israeli Jewish scholars about this problem of discrimination in higher institutions of learning in Israel. And both writers seem to conclude, similar to what you guys have said in your presentations, that there are essentially 4 clusters of challenges facing Palestinian students in Israel. 1 is the linguistic cultural barrier. 2, the lack of prior adequate preparation for academic studies at higher level throughout educational years or stages. The low socioeconomic status of the Arab community, and gender lifestyle expected of women at institutes of higher learning. If I were miraculously to appoint 3 of you, to appoint you all 3 to a special commission to revamp the Israeli higher education system today, what would you focus on in terms of the most urgent, from your personal perspective, of these 4 areas? What would you begin with in terms of reforming the system? Go ahead, Muhannad.
Yeah, I began with the epistemological challenge. I think, as Sarab and Ayman mentioned, this is the main challenge for the Palestinian student. I think there is no problem for the access. I think there is no serious problem for the Palestinians to access to the Israeli universities, but the most challenge is the epistemological challenge about what to write, how to think, critical thinking in the Israeli universities, to use a notion or terms about settler colonialism, and I think this is about the academic freedom to what to write, how to think, about the critical thinking in the Israeli universities. This is the main challenge in this time.
Thank you, Muhannad. Sarab?
I think I will work with them on the self-confidence, in how to face oppression, on how to face these oppressive mechanisms of control, because all the 4 clusters that you mentioned are actually mechanisms of controlling, to keep society, to keep the Palestinians in a lower position So they will not be able, to challenge the dominant hegemonic Israeli majority in the academia. So we want you 17% as undergraduate as students, but we don't want you. We want you only 3% as faculty, so you will not be able to challenge or to produce, critical knowledge. So yes, definitely excellence, academic excellence. So you can reach, high positions and start to challenge from these high positions. I hope I answered you.
Yes, you did. Thank you. Dr. Ayman.
Yeah, I think we have always the potential for academic excellence. We have many candidates that can compete, really. What they need is cultural excellence, a cultural excellency. This is the second cycle that would imbue their identities with meaning, with significance, not only to be like a technically PhD student or technically a faculty member, but to have a mission, to have a call, to have, like something that you wanna, something that bothers you, something that, you wanna fight for, you wanna be critical about. Amazingly, many of them, when you say, like, what bothers you, what you are critical about, they don't have an issue. So I think cultural excellency in this sense means that they are giving this literature, cultural literacy, cultural excellency, being aware of their culture, heritage, and identity. This is what I would want to do with many students, especially the advanced students and at the MA and the doctoral level.
Good advice. Thank you, Ayman. Thank you, Sarab. Thank you, Muhannad. We appreciate very much your precious time that you gave us to help us understand these very complicated issues pertaining to discrimination and inequalities, the continuing challenge in Israeli higher education for Palestinian students. I hope that our audience has benefited from your analysis and from your advice. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us. We look forward to future events, your participation in our future events pertaining to education, to Palestinian needs, and to the situation in Israel and Palestine. Thank you so much for joining us today.
شكرا.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
يعطيكم العافية، إلى اللقاء.